Attention. The live broadcast you have tuned into is a pre-recorded episode of the Dudes and Beer podcast. Dudes and Beer is presently traveling the vast void of time and space in an effort to find you more of the best content in the known universe. Enjoy the following transmission, and remember, if you can't be good at it. Grab your beverages and turn up your interweb. Solving the world's problems 12 ounces at a time. It's Dudes and Beer. Well, hello everybody. This is Chris Jordan, your host of Dudes and Beer. I'm here flying solo tonight, but not totally solo. It's not like a thinking deeply solo, where I'll just be by myself waxing philosophic. We're actually going to be sitting back with Todd Nevins, who is the host of the Go Hunt Life podcast, also owner of GoHuntLife.com. Great podcast. He also runs the Austin Podcast Community page on Facebook, and that's how we met, was actually through Facebook. And it was just one of those cool happenstance meetings, and it was like, hey, why don't you come out to the 100th episode? And he made it out, and we talked about having each other on shows and talking about things, and I last minute contacted him today after a fallout, and I was like, hey, what are you doing tonight? You want to come by and have a beer and chat?
And here I am, man. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, tell everybody, we'll get into that. We'll get into what you just got done doing, what you're getting ready to do, and what the show is all about.
Cool.
Right after this message from our sponsor.
Have you ever thought about brewing your own beer? Is the urge to brew there, but you just don't know how to get started? Well, Dudes and Beer is here to help. Stop on by the new Dudes and Beer Amazon store and check out all the great brewing supplies and gear today. We have it all, from instructional books and do-it-yourself kits for beginners to 16-gallon cooking vessels, carboys, bottling supplies, and cleaners for all you homebrew pros out there. Everything you need to brew your favorite beverages, even distilling equipment. So stop on by the official Dudes and Beer store today and get your hand on the greatest new brewing essentials. Simply visit dudesandbeer.com and click the Dudes and Beer store tab. Once again, that website is dudesandbeer.com and click the Dudes and Beer store tab today. Happy brewing, everybody. And until next time, drink responsibly.
And we are back, everybody. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the trip, because, your show is called Go Hunt Life. Your website is Go Hunt Life. And there's this very specific message with it. And I found it very interesting that you were actually out hunting life this weekend. Tell us a little bit about the trip that you just got doing, because it was pretty amazing and seemed pretty cool to me.
I moved to Dallas in 1992, so I'd lived in Texas for 18 years and then had a short stint out of the country, and then back here for a year in Austin, and I had never gone to Big Bend. And so my wife and I put it on the calendar a few months ago, made the reservations, and we went out there this past Wednesday and stayed out there Wednesday through Sunday. And now I get why everyone says you've got to go at least once in your life.
Yeah, it is it is number one a Texas experience in and of itself. Number two, it's just beautiful country. It's just beautiful. It literally does wash the soul. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's a great line. Yeah, it does. I expected it to be neat and mountainous and hilly and stuff like that. No, it was way above and beyond. And it's actually only the second national park that I've ever been in.
Oh,
the
really?
Other being Rocky Mountain National Park.
Wow.
And so this was the second one, and this one just blew me away. We stayed a night in Marfa and checked out the whole Marfa lights and the immense amount of stars, and checked out just why Marfa is Marfa.
Yeah. It's a place in and of itself, and a culture in and of itself.
It is. It's a lot smaller than 2,200 people.
Yeah. Did you stay in the Yurt Village?
No, we drove by that.
Yeah?
We drove by it.
Yeah.
We stayed in a normal
I want
hotel.
to go stay in the yurt village, but it's got to be like, it's got to be winter. I'm sorry, people. I can take it. It's going to be like 48 degrees outside. That's beautiful weather to me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
it looks pretty crazy. And
Yeah.
then we drove down into Lajitas and stayed in Terlingua for a few nights and then experienced Big Bend for what it
Yeah.
really was, and,
Yeah.
and the temperature swings and the terrain and one day it was we were down at the river. We actually crossed the river over into Mexico one of the days, and it was 100 degrees. And the next day a storm blew in, and we were up on the mountain hiking, and it was 51 degrees. So we had a 50-degree drop in less than 24 hours, and all there in that same place. It was incredible.
yeah, it's drastic temperature change once the sun goes down.
Yeah,
It really is.
and it's the 100th anniversary for the national parks last year.
Oh,
And-
that's right.
And
That's
ironically, I had a guest on my show a couple of months ago, Bill Psycholic, and because of the 100th episode, he quit his job in New York City. He's a runner, and he's running 52. I think there are 52 national parks.
Oh, wow.
He's running 52 marathons in each of those national parks in 52 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And so he's running one. He camps. There's a tent on top of his car
Wow.
that he sleeps in, and he drives to the next one. He maps out his trail run for another marathon, and he goes to the next one. And so he's about 30, 38 or 39 in, and he ran it about a month and a half ago, and he had already been a guest on my show. And then on his way from there to Arkansas, he stopped in Austin, and we were able to meet in person for the first time. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's wild, man. What a
and then
crazy
we go
circle.
Follow him back out there and go to Big Bend a month after he did. So
Yeah,
it's really
right.
cool.
Well, and getting into that, tell us a little bit about the show, how you came up with the concept, and what it's all about.
Yeah, Go Hunt Life. It's I guess it's a literal title, and what I look for and the things that I'm able to reflect on in my life is that the ripcord moments in your life when you were somebody in 1 minute and something drastically transpired and you're somebody else the next minute. And
Yeah.
I actually go towards guests that have self-imposed that change in their lives. I do
Yeah.
have a couple.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of guests where life imposed it on them versus them having
Yep.
the health related or something like that. But I try to go towards the positive, inspiring. You do have control of your life, and
That's
you
right.
do control your destiny, and so those are the types of guests that I'm 46 episodes in as of tomorrow, and it's been an interesting ride. But the main concept behind the Go Hunt Life podcast and movement and community that I'm building is that it's the people that have made the seemingly impossible decision to let go of the ordinary to grasp and live the extraordinary.
Yeah, to give the crazy life a shot.
To give
'Cause
it a shot.
It does take a modicum of crazy in order to do it. Because you've kind of got to have that gambling spirit inside and occasionally be willing to just roll the dice with it all on the table.
Absolutely. And we were, and the people that do it are afraid.
Yeah.
They've got fear.
Oh, yeah.
They're not like, I've got it all figured out. No, I'm going to be fine. No
Yeah,
way.
I didn't have it all figured out.
No, I still don't have it all figured
Yeah,
out.
I still don't have it all figured out. Like, God, man, I got a kid coming in 2.5 weeks, and I'm racing to figure something out right now. I can tell you what.
Yeah.
But how did you come? Because, I mean, as someone who was a philosophy major and taught religion for a long time, things like that, this is, of course, a concept that is not foreign to me, but it's a concept, the concept of manifestation and the concept of actually you get exactly what you put out there. How did you come across that cosmic concept as it is, and what made you want to share that with people?
I can point to the most recent example of that is when I was first getting started, I met another podcaster here locally, Tom Singer, and he said a line to me that was given to him years ago. Said, if you want to be inspired, go interview 50 inspirational people, and if you want to inspire others, share those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that has stuck with me through this whole process. I'm not about to stop at 50, but it's stuck with me as the tone of what I'm doing and what I'm pulling from the people that pulling, that's a negative term, just receiving as an honor, really, for the people that I'm interviewing and that have given me 45 minutes of not only their time, but their time sharing really, really personal experiences in their life with me. Yeah. And then allowing me to say, giving me the honor to be able to broadcast that out and share it has been something that I just can't, it's a complete honor. It's been incredible.
Yeah. And it is something that, as someone who taught for years, I don't know, I guess you get used to that sharing, and there does kind of become an addiction to the sharing. And this, I normally learn more about myself from my interviewees, just like I did from my students by the end of a semester. I would have light bulbs go on. I would have new thought patterns and new memes of thinking that would pop up in my head because of conversations that I had with my class. And it's like, oh, wow. Like I'd never really vocalized that and really thought about it from that other point of view. That's wild.
You've nailed it. I feel like I'm going through a master's, an MBA degree. An MBA degree followed by a master's in life degree, whatever that means. Yeah. That's what I'm going through. Some of the people that I've interviewed have quit their 9-to-5 jobs and started a company. Most of them, and the theme that's kind of bubbling up to the surface and the direction that I've been going recently and will certainly head towards. I know we're going to talk about this in a bit, but recently I've interviewed a lot of people that have not only quit their 9-to-5, but also sold down to a minimalist level and then left the country.
Yeah.
And are expats, travelers, living the digital nomad, location independent entrepreneurial lifestyle, and still making money at it. And so they're combining 2 or 3 of their passions together. One of those being, we want to go see Thailand or Lisbon or wherever.
Yeah.
And they are passionate about content marketing, or they're passionate about web development or podcasting. I mean, it's all of those things. They've combined their passions together. And some of these people have kids and they're married, and the kid factor to me with I'm married, but we don't have kids. That's a whole nother level of bravery that these people have that my podcast guest tomorrow has a 5-month-old son, and that's not slowing him down in the least.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I mean, that's just it. People, because like I said, we're getting ready to have our kid here in just a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, get ready for it to change a lot. And I'm like, well, fortunately, we're blessed enough that my wife and I are both self-employed. She does her acting and teaching and things like that with comedy and her shows, and I'm normally out doing corporate AV. We both have podcasts that we're trying to, bring that in with. I have Austin Hot Mods. I have a few different sources of income that, I whittle together a living with throughout the year.
Sure.
And it's amazing that I have a wife, number one, that supports that and is like, that's cool. We seem to do all right between, I didn't grow up with a whole lot. She didn't grow up with a whole lot. So we're doing all right with what we got.
Sure.
We're happy. So,
cool.
But it takes a different mentality to really get into that. And when did that start for you? What was the intrinsic moment that you would say really brought the decision to bear for you that was just like, you know what? There's no other decision now.
That there is a mini moment early in my 20s, and then the moment in my late 20s. But the earlier moment is I graduated from college. I went to school up in Illinois, Southern Illinois University. And leading up to my college graduation, I'm from Central Illinois, small Springfield. It's 100,000 people, so relatively small in the grand scheme of things. And I just knew once my senior year started, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm 2 semesters away from getting out of here. Now what? And I knew I wanted to, at that point, I could make a decision, a life-changing decision on 2 really simple things. I wanted to go to a big city, and I wanted to go where it was warm. And I started researching, and I discovered, Dallas was hot. I mean, this was in the early 90s. It was hot. It was hopping. So
Where'd you go?
I went I went to the airport in St. Louis 4 days after I graduated from college with a one-way plane ticket to Dallas, Texas.
Rock on.
And I flew to Dallas and jumped into life. And I knew one person in Dallas. And I stayed with her, and until she was a friend of my older sister's, and I got a job in an apartment, and I started in. And so that was the mini moment and I didn't really realize it at that time because I didn't have a lot of stuff. I didn't have a lot of history. I was just getting started. But so then once I started acquiring stuff and a house and cars and all that, I got a real job right out of college, and I worked for 6 years. And then, after that, I quit my job. I walked into my boss's office and I said, I'm quitting in 6 months. I'm going to start my own executive staffing firm. And so I walked out of a job with a salary and bonuses and all of the stuff, expense account. And I had 13 people reporting to me. I had worked my way up to a sales manager position and walked out and started my own staffing firm out of an extra bedroom in my house. And that was one of the biggest defining moments in my life where I'm like, I know that I could work for this company for, more or less as long as I wanted to. My boss was then turned out to be the best man in my wife and I's wedding. So we had a great relationship. Yeah. Everything was good. Yeah. No reason to quit.
And that's what most people don't realize is that they think that they're going to utterly rock a boat. And like, I just had this situation happen twice to me, and I'm a freelancer, and I do work through some freelance companies, and it's a touchy situation. Some of them I've worked with for years, and I just had a property that I work at kind of come to me. They know that the baby's coming. They love the work that I provide and the quality that I provide whenever I'm there, and how I interface with clients. And they were like, "Listen, we could get you on some more gigs if we could book you outside of them." And I was, like it gets a little funky, because like you can muddy waters, and it's a very delicate triangle, though the triangle is like the strongest form in nature. That's a delicate triangle. Sure. Like one side of that thing could shatter and the whole thing collapse real quick.
Right.
And I was like, let me make a phone call and all that. And I called the guy up, and he was like incredibly impressed that I called and didn't just go and do it. But he was like, "Yeah, man, absolutely. Like that's great. That's a fantastic opportunity for you. You should absolutely take it." And that's something that, I spent not too long ago. My last episode of Thinking Deeply was about mentors, and any mentor or anybody that you're in business with or work with that would hold you back from that kind of thing is probably not there for your best vested interest anyway.
No, you're exactly right. And my first mentor.
And that's a hard mentality to get into.
That my first mentor was my boss. That turned out to be my best man in the wedding. When I walked in and said, "I'm giving you 6 months notice," he was 100%. He got it. It clicked. He was supportive. I worked through the 6 months, did a great job. He was happy. We're happy. We're still buds. Like it was all handled the way that it was supposed to be handled.
Well, and what you were doing, it's as far as you could take that.
Right.
Like you felt like there was no further that you could do it to where it was fulfilling and satisfying to you.
Yeah.
And like you said, you could have suffered through. You could have gone for another 20 years there and been paid and gotten money and gotten bonuses and all kinds of stuff. But the question comes to bear, is the quantity worth the sacrifice of the quality?
and it's no way, not even close.
And that's where I kind of want to seg
Sure.
into another interesting part of your story that we got into at the 100th episode.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about the last part of your adventure in life before you came back and started this website and started this podcast.
Sure. So I quit my job. I was self-employed. My wife and I got married, and we were living the normal Dallas suburb life.
Great life.
Yeah, great
Good
life. We had a nice house. It was 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. We had a house full of stuff and tools in the garage, and I had home brewing equipment and a road bike and
Huzzah.
car and 4-wheeler and all of those things. And I was still self-employed. My executive staffing company morphed into a job board, and then I was also doing what I'm doing now. I was doing AdWords marketing, digital marketing, online marketing for clients. And so I had those 2 gigs going. And then my wife was working the corporate job, though. She was still in the corporate grind, and she was rocking it, and she was making good money. And we were going on President's Club trips every year to the Caribbean. And she was there, ended up being there for a total of 9 years. But it got to a breaking point where the money was just irrelevant. And the moment that I can point to in my life when I remember, like, my life was headed in our lives were heading in one direction at one moment, and the next direction in the next moment. It just got to a breaking point, and where there was an argument over payment for commissions with her company, and it was a significant amount of money. It was significant enough to where we were in a position, and we knew that we wanted to make a big shift and make a big change in our lives. We had put a 2-year game plan or 2-year time frame on ourselves. Like, let's save money as much as 2 years down the road. Then we're going to make this major life change. Unless your job, it just becomes unbearable and something major happens. Something major happened, and it came down to a conversation with her boss's boss one early evening where I knew that he was going to be calling her, and they were going to have this conversation. It was going to go either path A, or we're going to pay you,
there's only one.
There's
and that's just it. Like, I had that uncomfortable conversation twice in 1 month with 2 different companies that have been like my bread and butter for a long time.
Yeah.
And they both fortunately were very much like your buddy, like, Godspeed, man. I understand why you're doing this.
Right.
It's a good thing that this happened to you.
Right.
Go for it. We'll still call you for work.
Yeah.
But totally different with her situation.
Yeah. So it was her only gig. It was our insurance, our benefits, the salary, the stability in our household. But I was out for a run. And I came in the front door, and I saw her in the kitchen. She was in a charged conversation on the phone, and I knew it was with him. And I took the dog for a walk, and I walked out the front door, and I took the dog for a 15-minute walk. And when I was walking up the sidewalk to the front door, I stopped myself and had the thought, my life could completely change when I opened that front door. And I opened that front door, and she walked around the corner from the kitchen in tears. She's like, I can't take it anymore. I've got to quit my job. And at that moment, that domino fell.
Yep.
She walked in that Friday and quit her job. And the plan all along was that eventually we were going to sell everything we owned and moved to Mexico.
Yeah.
We started selling everything we owned. We started, that first domino fell that night, and everything just fell after that. And about 6 months later, we had sold our house, both cars, the furniture, the tools, Craigslist, garage sale, estate sale, giving it away to friends and family, everything down to a handful of suitcases. And we got on a plane in Houston, and we flew to Merida, Mexico with our English Bulldog. And we moved to Mexico, and we dove into, my second, only the second time I'd ever moved cities was out of the country. No, I didn't. I knew very little Spanish. My wife knew a little bit more Spanish. It was pesos. It was metric system. It was Celsius. It was new friends, new environment, new everything. And we just dove in, and it was it was absolutely one of the biggest decisions of my life, and the reason behind the Go Hunt Life podcast. We lived there 5 years, and through those 5 years, we met people that really put our story to shame. Like, these people have got way more at risk, less money, more money outlaid in investing in a foreign hotel, or they've got kids and they've got more at risk, and they're still plowing forward when they could always make the safe play and get a job. And instead they've gone and lived, they're living the expat digital nomad, a lot of them, or they move into Mexico and start a business. And so we ripcorded out of the United States and to Merida, Mexico. And we lived there, ended up living there five years.
Wow. And how was that? Was it, oh, sorry. Tried to kill a bug. Was it, I mean, it's a hard decision to quick and easy Band-Aid something like that. It's extraordinarily hard. I've been up against that. That's how I moved to Maine. That's how I moved back home from Maine. They were both just like, I can't not. Mm-hmm. So I did it, and that's it. That's all there is to it.
There was only one decision. At one point, you get to I only have one decision.
Exactly. And y'all finally hit that moment where like, mm-hmm. this is it. It's happening. We've got to go.
Yep.
And you obviously enjoyed that life. You enjoyed it down there. What was it that ultimately brought you back stateside,
Sure.
that brought you back to Texas?
The experience down there was awesome. It's an old colonial city. It was established 500 years ago when the Spanish came in and conquered the Mayans and tore down their temples and built cathedrals instead. Tore down their And so that's how the city was established. So it's a 500-year-old city. It's like you're walking through a museum, but it's a city of 1 million people, and there are direct flights from Houston. So even though when we're walking downtown in the Centro area where all of the foreigners like us lived, we ended up buying a home, we rehabbed a home. Most of the foreign people that move there from the United States or anywhere around the world and Canada live downtown. So all of our friends were within a 10 or 15 block walk out the front door and walk to friends' houses. It was we lived a pedestrian lifestyle down there. But it's a city of 1 million people. So we have Costco, we have Sam's, we had Starbucks, we had the Buffalo Wild Wings, all of those things that are normal as an American. Yeah. But then there was the cultural difference of things were slower and things weren't as efficient and things didn't always work the way that they were supposed to. And so a couple of things changed for us. We were there 5 years. I was a part of a company that actually I got out of while we were there. It was a job board in the analytics space, and I got out of that company while we were there. And so that freed up a lot of my daily mental bandwidth to focus on my other business, Click Placement, which is an AdWords marketing. I'm an AdWords marketing consultant. And so I've got clients that are in cosmetic surgery or attorneys or software firms or startups or app developers. Sure. And I'm helping them drive traffic through paid search, through primarily AdWords and also, Facebook and LinkedIn and Bing. And so, but to do that, to really build that business, I wanted to get back into an environment where it was an immediate immersion into a tech environment where I was being challenged, where I was being forced to up my game every single day and be able to meet with clients that had needs that I knew I could solve. And I could, but telling someone, I live in Mexico. I know my area code's 512. Sorry, I can't come out and have coffee with you tomorrow. But I'm actually in Mexico.
If we can Skype about this.
That was 3 or 4 years ago when this was 2 or 3 years ago when this was all happening. Yes, that works to a point, but to really dive in, I wanted to have that interaction, that face-to-face interaction, and and be in an environment where maybe I'm not just meeting with clients, but maybe I'm meeting with other people that are doing the exact same thing I'm doing and all of that. So, So
absolutely.
A little over a year ago, we put the wheels in motion to it was actually, a year and a half ago. We put the house on the market there in Merida and started the process to move back to the United States. Not Dallas this time. We always had in the back of our minds that if we were ever coming back to the United States, absolutely going to be Austin. It was a smaller place. My wife's brother lives here. It's Austin. It's more of a. We were hopeful that it was more of a community coming back versus Dallas is just a very big, sprawling, spread out space.
It's like Houston. It's a metroplex.
Like Houston.
It's a metroplex.
It is massive, and it's very siloed. Like
Houston has a lot more, like, I think, soul and heart to it. Dallas is very much like very, very like, as opposed to Houston, where it's like, sure, downtown we're going to roll up the sidewalks at night because nobody really lives here. It's really that way in Dallas.
Yeah, it is.
Like, there are a few spots up around downtown Dallas, like Deep Ellum and stuff, like up across the freeway.
Uptown.
But, other than that, man, like, that place is a ghost town come nighttime.
It's unfortunate.
Come 6 o'clock, it's,
Fort Worth has done a better job with their downtown, and now up and coming is Denton. Mm-hmm. Denton is really making a run.
I've heard that.
It's a mini Austin.
I went to school in Irving, and now there's just a big sand pit right there across from my university. So, yeah.
Go Cowboys.
Yeah.
So it was, we have tons of friends in Dallas. It's a super efficient place to live. You can work. It's relatively inexpensive to live.
Yeah.
Taxes are low. Like, you can fly anywhere it's a super efficient place. But we wanted to come back to an area where we were hopeful that we were going to come in and get the feel of it being more of a community. And that is a giant understatement coming here.
Yeah.
I mean, it is exactly what we were hopeful for and so much more. So we came back and we live on Town Lake. I mean, we live in one of the many mid-rise apartment complexes with food trucks out front and a dog run, and it's right on the lake for cycling. I cycle downtown to a co-working space every day to work. And we've kept our pedestrian lifestyle that we had in Mexico.
Sure.
And moved here. We have one car, not two. We've got 3 bikes and 1 car, and we ride share it. We do car to go. We walk and we ride bikes, and so we've kept our pedestrian lifestyle. And then the podcast idea came along. We came here 2 weeks before South by Southwest last year, 2016.
Okay.
And coming here, I was going to dive into my AdWords marketing consulting business, because that's
place for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing it for a decade. I enjoy it. I know I'm good at it. My clients, like, I know it works. It's a very like, you can track, is this working or is it not working? Like, the ROI is pretty easy to track depending upon what we're trying to do with the company. But I came here and I knew that there was something else that I was going to do to get my name and my brand and me and just get me entrenched, but I didn't know. And I came to South by, and we had just been here a week or two, and we didn't have badges. We were 2 weeks into the city. And whenever you're like that, like, everything seems like, in one instance, it's like everything is awesome, but also there's a whole nother level of uncomfortableness to it. Like, it's all new. Like, was this the right decision? We don't know anybody. All of those thoughts and feelings are going through it. And we jumped into to South by, and I was on Twitter and I was on their app trying to get all the free things. We didn't have badges. Yeah. So we go into South by, and within literally the first 30 minutes, we go into like I think it was a Samsung event. It was a free event. We go in and they ask us, we're just standing around, and there's like a big swing set with grass outside. Yeah. They said, hey, we need 2 extra people. Jump on those swings and swing. And the local news station was there. And so they were filming us swinging on these swings. And one of our friends that live in Round Rock, like 4 hours later, he texts us and says, you've been here no time at all, and you're already on the news. Like, what is going on? Like, I don't know. It just kind of happened. It just flowed.
Yeah.
And then the next day we went to, and this was the moment for the Go Hunt Life podcast and me starting a podcast, is that we went to the, I believe it's the Market Bar, and another podcaster here, Nathan Latka, was broadcasting live. And he had 4 guests come in, and he was broadcasting or videoing a live podcast, and 4 guests, bam, 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 bam. And we got there early, and we started talking to him, and I started doing research on him. He was actually new to Austin, and it was an interview just like this, a one-on-one interview with people, and he had the owner of Juice Land. He had a guy from Under Armour, and a couple of the people, and he was interviewing him, and it was a quick hit thing. His interviews were about 15 or 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And I watched him do it, and I'm like, I can do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I can excel at that. I've been interviewing people since I was 24 years old when I was promoted to a sales manager. I've interviewed thousands of people, or let's say hundreds of people over the years, both in person and over the phone. And I love interviewing people for the inspirational thing versus interviewing them for a job or trying to place them in a job as a recruiter, to pull the inspirational moment out of it. So I walked out of that thing and talked to my wife Allison, like, I'm going to do that. And then I started, like, what's the topic, what's the tone, what's the reason? And I knew it was going to be a one-on-one interview, but then it's like, wait a minute, I need to combine, like, our ripcord moments of moving out of the country with nothing but a few suitcases, coming back. What are those stories like for people that had a million reasons, and everybody in their personal lives telling them, what are you doing? What about this?
You're
what
a
about
crazy
you got a
person.
mortgage,
You're a fool.
Yeah. You're making a huge mistake. You've been working so hard. You're an attorney. You're a teacher. You're an accountant. Like, all of those things.
And see, that's just it. To me, the question is, at that point, does that define you? Does that define you? Like, for me, what defines you is something that you'll never stop doing. Like, I'm a musician, an artist, and an audiovisual engineer. I'll never stop doing it.
Okay.
Even when I'm not on the clock for somebody else, I'm here wiring stuff, or I'm here doing a podcast, or I'm editing a podcast, or thinking about other stuff. I do it 24/7. Even just the other day, started building a new website for my wife's sketch comedy show, just because, like, it needed to be done. Why don't you have one? This drives me nuts. I'm building you one now. That's it. I'm tired of hearing this. The only way you're going to grow and do what you want to do is somebody pushing you over the cliff. So now flap. Flap real hard.
Yeah.
Dumbo.
It's sometimes people come to that realization in their 20s, and sometimes people don't come to it until they're in their 50s. My oldest guest, I interviewed him when he was 60, and it took he was 54 years old before he came to that moment of, I am unhappy, and he was in tears over his desk. He was 70 pounds overweight. He was riddled with arthritis. He had worked himself into exactly where he was at that moment, at his desk, unhealthy, unhappy. And he's like, enough. And he went to the gym, and he started walking, and then he started running, and now he's an ultra distance runner, and he just ran across the Spanish Pyrenees, 525 miles, 28 days. It's like climbing Mount Everest 4 times in 28 days. And he's an inspirational speaker. He's done a TED Talk. He's wrote a book. All of that stuff. So it's turned into another, just recently, I guess, is like, as soon as you start following your passion, the world will conspire to support you. Yeah,
and it's really odd, and it's funny because, like I said, I taught religion for years and stuff like that. And one of the things I used to always compare it to was there are 2 paths, and they both go to the same place. One of them has rocks and hurdles and all kinds of stuff in the way, and it's a perfectly viable path. If you feel like jumping over some rocks and hurdles and getting muddy and nasty, that's cool. But this one over here is kind of paved, and it's a little bit easier, and probably the one that you're supposed to go down. And most of the time it's literally because we have this intrinsic thought in our brain and this programming of it's supposed to be a struggle. And I guess it is supposed to be a struggle. I'm not saying that like go out and quit your job tomorrow and follow your passion and you're going to be a millionaire. That is not what we're saying,
No.
folks. All right. Like I said, it takes a certain kind of crazy, number one. Not everybody is cut out for time management. Even my wife, whenever I took a job on broadcast, and about 3 weeks into it, she came home and was like, I was let go from my job today. And she thought I was going to be upset. I was like, that's great. It's like, I am so happy for you. Now you can do nothing but theater full time.
Perfect.
And you can be absolutely happy.
Perfect.
And we were passing ships in the night for a long time, but she was doing what she loved and I was doing what I loved.
Yeah.
And even though I was doing 60 hours a week, I was bored. I was doing like 50 plus hours a week on broadcast and started a pedal modification company because my brain was she would be gone for like 5-6 hours of the night.
Right.
I had nothing else to do.
Right.
What else am I going to do?
Right.
Just sit around and play a video game? Like
No.
that to me at this point of life is just a waste.
Yeah, it's a
like
waste.
I'd much rather sit and play Neo and code a website
Right.
and get into the PHP stuff and start playing around than sit and, play a video game nowadays.
Yep.
And yeah, it really does like, and I guess the question that I'm getting to philosophically is, do you really feel that everybody's jib is necessarily cut to sail those waters?
No, absolutely not. I think that they're,
and it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because I don't like discouraging people from doing it or trying it.
No, I think that it has to be, it's certainly, it's the self-motivating. I'm trying to find the self-motivating moment in these people's lives where they physically and literally and emotionally pulled the ripcord on who they were and let go of any sort of label they were up to that point. Like a guest in New York City that quit after a 22-year career in law, and she was a high-powered corporate attorney making a lot of money, spending a lot of hours in the office. And when she quit and told her friends, they were all just like, no, you're the high-powered attorney, New York City attorney. What are you doing? She's like, no. And within 1 year of her quitting, she had taught herself to bake lactose-free, dairy-free, and gluten-free baking desserts, and had opened her first bakery in New York City. She's now got 4. It's Seth Godin's wife, Helene Godin.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is that?
She's got 4 locations now, and she's a rock star.
And it's funny that you even that story, because like I had a cousin in the DFW area that was pretty high up there in corporate law, stuff like that, had done really well, moved up really fast, and gotten to the point where she could let go early.
Okay.
And decided, I'm going to let go early, but man, I'm too young to not be doing anything. Went out and worked as a baggage thrower for Delta, dude.
Awesome.
And like started just like traveling the world with all of her Delta miles from being an employee, and all of her free flights and stuff like that. Cause she was already retired. Her house was paid for, her car's paid for,
Perfect.
like money in the bank. And just one of those, like, go out, live it, do it.
Yeah. I didn't answer your question.
It's okay.
You asked me that you think that everybody is cut out for that. Actually, yes, but not everybody, of course, is going to do it. Whether that's, and most of the time, it's that maybe they're in debt. Maybe they worked themselves in, or maybe they had a health situation and they're in tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and they have to pay that off. Maybe it was something where they made a mistake. Maybe it was a bad business deal that went wrong and they're in debt. Of course, the kid factor is at play. The kids are in school, they're playing football, they've got their friends, they've got the neighborhood. And, maybe they do like their life. Well, like they like seeing other people make random crazy decisions and following their passion, but maybe they're not that unhappy with their current situation.
Well, and that's just it. Cool. There's quite a few people that like that passionate life is just not for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I come from a simple country folk on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that like, what do you mean? You got no job. you sit around and click keys like. It's like George Jetson when you're at work, you just push one button and people pay you all this money. It's like, well, there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, I do just push one button during showtime. It's go. That's it. But there's a lot more to it than that. And, not everybody can truly wrap their mind around it, I think, much less really grasp the concept of not necessarily being free, but the personal responsibility and accountability it takes to be free.
Sure.
In order to do that.
I think one of the things that we had in our favor is that we don't have kids. We decided not to have kids. So as we got into our late 30s, and when most people have, like, you're going to have this in 2 weeks. Like, today you're not a dad.
In my 40s, though.
Okay, but still, like, you're going to be.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be a defining line. You're not a dad right now.
There's going to be
bam, you're a dad.
Dads and beer starts in about a month, believe me.
So,
all right?
So your defining moment of like, bam, I'm now a dad. Like, I think a lot of times, and this is coming from a non-parent, so I have zero reason to come to this conclusion. But I'm saying that, for us not having kids, we were still like wanting that moment in our midlives of like, bam, we are somebody, like a major life change. Normally we saw that with our friends, is that was being parents, and that's awesome, and they're great parents, and we didn't want to be parents, and we didn't want to have kids, and we were.
But you do have kids.
We have a dog.
No, you do have kids, and that's what I've tried to tell my wife is like, at one point, like I said, like you walked into the studio and you were like, whoa, and that's what most people say. This is, like I said, accrued from having. Other than my synthesizers over here, most of it is accrued from having numerous racks of gear that were for different things, live and stuff like that. I had a few different systems, and at one point I stopped providing live sound systems and doing that. So I had a bunch of gear and got a rack system and put it all in it. And now it's my personal system. And my wife, for the longest time, even now, like the speakers that you saw, like were from my sound company. Mixer that you saw the other night, from my sound company. Like I kept enough to, like, if I want to put on a show, I'm going to put on a show somewhere. I kept enough to put on a show, because hey, what if I want to put on a show? You never know. But I had a lot, like multiple sound systems worth of stuff. Yeah. And she was like, when are you going to get rid of all this? I'm like, you have to understand, like, this system over here is what nurtured me. Like, this was my first system that I built. Like, this is what I moved from Maine to Houston. And like rebuilt my life with. It's like you asking me to sell my 14-year-old. Literally, like, this stuff is like 14 years old and been an intrinsic part of my career. Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard to let that go.
Sure.
I think, and that's just equipment.
Yeah.
Much less the programming of having 15 years on a job, having 15 years somewhere, and
probably the defining moment that I think about now that I'm 46 episodes in, and that just like encapsulates, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how, what your career is, your education, that's all completely irrelevant. This guest of mine, her name is Roz Savage, and she was in London, and she was making a bunch of money as a management consultant. She had got a college degree. She got a job. She was just racking up the cash and trying to buy a bigger house to put more stuff in it, and in her words, that she didn't need. And it got to a breaking point one night. She was 34 years old. She came home, she sat down, and she wrote 2 obituaries. One obituary, the one that she was heading towards, and the other obituary was the one that she wanted to live.
Nice.
And and then she went to bed. She got up the next morning, and she tried to forget all about it. And she went back to work because it scared the hell out of her. And she tried to forget about it. And a week went by, and 2 weeks went by, and 2 months went by, and she couldn't forget about it.
Yeah.
And she went in and she quit. She actually also got divorced, which is kind of a rare situation in my podcast theme, but got divorced, sold everything, and traveled for about a year. She was a rower in college. She got back to London, and she'd come through her travels. She had come up with the idea that she was going to row across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans by herself in a rowboat.
Wow.
She's now a 4-time world record holder.
Wow.
The first woman to row solo across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in a 23-foot rowboat. And she's
crazy.
got 4 world records, and it started with her writing 2 obituaries.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just it. Like there are just these little moments. And it's interesting because you really do have to kind of it takes a special mind to find those connecting moments.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a special lens to look through life, to see things in such a fractal spider web way where you literally, like, kind of like for me, there was a decision at one point in my life to go to University of Dallas for the reasons that I went to enter the seminary. Then I left.
Okay.
And for some odd reason, I was drawn to go back. And it was at that point I actually met my wife.
Okay, well, there you go.
And years later, after I moved back from Maine, she had just moved to Austin, and we met on Facebook and started. And it's just it's odd the way that these little things connect and happen, and you don't really know why, and something's there, and you don't really know what it is, but you do have to kind of fully trust that gut feeling to go with it.
Yeah, you have to. Yes, and there have been, since moving back. My wife and I my wife did not want to come back. She had a store in Merida. We have a bunch of friends there. But from a financial perspective, from a personal, professional career growth perspective, I really needed to come back here. And we came back, and she ended up taking all the things that she had learned there with starting a retail store. She started an online store.
Beautiful.
She learned WordPress. She was not a real big social media person. Now she's using Buffer and Hootsuite and all of these social media things. She's clever and funny.
Wow,
and
great.
so she's rolled into the city, and now we've been here just over a year. And throughout my time here and her time here, and just with the podcast and with click placement and all that, there have been multiple times where I've just stepped back and said to myself, or her and I have said it out loud, like, that moment tells me we are exactly where we should be right now. Exactly.
And like I had a job opportunity pop up not too long ago, and it was really hard to pass up. It really was. It took a lot of thought and prayer and consideration. And it was one of those, like, not only do I have a baby on the way, but I have way too many irons in the fire right now that are actually starting to heat up and, like, bear fruit and come to shape.
Yep.
And I can't, like, it would do a disservice to all of the work that I've put in to not see this through to fruition, either to fruition or failure, one of the two.
Either way.
And in my mind, I say it all the time on both Dudes and Beer and Talking Sound. That fruition, ladies and gentlemen, is utterly up to you. Don't let anybody ever define your level of success or define what is success to you. That's how discouragement happens. That's how, especially if you believe in something, you've got to keep doing it. Yeah. Like, I almost folded Austin Hot Mods at one point because the website, amongst a few others on my account, got hacked so bad that it was gone, and it was gone for like 3 months. And I was like, oh man, I gotta rebuild a website that's like 6 years old from scratch.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the time or like the energy in me to do that right now after that defeat.
Yep.
And I ended up doing it because, well, it says web design on my business card, and on the back there's a QR code that goes to Austin Hot Mods. So if people shoot that QR, it should really go to a website.
Well, but you know what I mean?
But
you have to let the timing come, like your passion to come through. Like, all right, today's the day I'm going to start this thing.
Exactly. And that's what it was. And then I found the internet Wayback Machine, and it was like, oh, my sweet baby Jesus, like, 7/8 of my website is existing on this as still frames, so I can like copy and paste text.
Yep.
I don't have to like come up with pages and pages.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty good about like whenever I write a page for a website, I copy and paste it into a text document.
Okay.
You know, I have my backups, but
Yep.
sometimes I go on the fly and I write up a pedal description and it doesn't make it into that document. And there were about 20 of them like that. And it was like, no. And yeah, it really is that that moment that you have to learn to recognize, like you said, you got to learn to recognize the breeze, when to be ready to pull the ripcord and take off with it, man. Because if you're not open to that moment, if you're closed off to that moment, which is so easy to do, even doing what we do in the aspect that we do it, there's still risks, there's still gambles, there's still ripcord moments on the weekly basis. Yeah. When you're self-employed and when you're a freelancer, you know, there's a lot of taking things on faith. Yep. Whenever you start doing stuff.
Jump back a little bit, and this advice I've used in many different areas, but when we were researching moving to Mexico, we had gone down on 1 week long trip just to see what was going on, and we met a couple of different people, and we met a guy down there, Keith. He's a real estate agent. He had been there for 5 years before us, and was very established. And he said the people that come down and either look at the city, look at real estate, or even move here at one point, the people that come here and thrive figure out 60% before coming, and they figure out the other 40% along the way. The people that are trying to figure out 90 and 95% before they pull the ripcord and make a major drastic change in their life never make that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've fallen back on that advice. Figure out 60%. You're going to figure out the other 40 along the way.
And that's what I tell so many people. Good friends of mine too, who are like, oh, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, but here's the thing. I didn't just quit my job one day and become a full-time audio engineer. I mixed at clubs for about 5 years, 5 nights a week. While I had a full-time job. That's like, people ask how I got all this gear. And it's like, I had a full-time job that paid my bills and bought food. And every $50, $75 night that I mixed, or, $25 recording I sold, that went to buy gear.
Yeah.
And then once I had a business, 20% of all income went to buy gear.
Yeah.
And went to update gear. And like, you really do have to put forth a plan. And I'm a big believer, especially with these ripcord moments. Hey man, even the people jumping out of an airplane have a chart. They have a desired destination and altitude from which to jump, a desired speed. They have a desired landing place. Sometimes the wind may drift them a little bit further away or a little bit closer, but they've taken pen to paper and they've done their math and they've extrapolated out scenarios, but they don't just go hop in a plane and go, wow. It's I'm sorry. It's not all, a Keanu Reeves movie like that. It's not all Point Break, but it is definitely something that you've got to start putting the infrastructure forward. If it's something that, you're passionate about, if it's something that you believe in, start putting a little bit of infrastructure into it. Start doing a little bit of research. Dedicate an hour or two a week to literally just sitting down with a beverage and, in a notebook and write it down. I'm a big believer in write it down. Until it is on paper and in front of your face, it does not exist.
Yeah.
Once it's on paper, like you've manifested it now, it's there. Away. It's in front of you.
It's the 2 obituaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Those didn't go away.
Exactly.
And she tried and tried and tried and tried. They didn't go away. They were written down on paper. Yeah. And that was it.
And you can make small goals. Like, you don't have to even put on paper, like, I will be financially independent from my job in 2 years. You can do small goals. Like, within a month, I will have researched 3 other alternative streams that I like, and literally put it on a calendar. Because like we're saying, until it's staring you in the face every day, taunting you, it's hard to see that through to fruition, hard to see it through to completion, because it's not going to be everyone that holds you up on a carpet and hurrahs you for making this decision. Believe it or not, most people will not be doing that.
Yeah.
Most people will be waving huge red flags and like shooting flares and lighting gasoline in front of you to block your way.
Yep.
Setting up firewalls and things like that. And it's, you know, it's discouraging. Like I had my mom, even my dad, like whenever I moved home from Maine, well, what are you going to do for a living? I don't know. I own a business. Maybe I'll do my business.
Yeah,
just a wild, crazy thought.
For sure. We were lucky to, you know, I've been blessed through all of my decisions throughout life is that my parents have been super supportive. My dad quit his real job right after I got out of college. I'm the youngest, so once the you know the college tuition payments were over, then it allowed him to do what he loved doing, and he quit his real job that he had for 20 years and started Western art business, and he's to this day is a Western art dealer.
Great.
And they've built their lives around that business. It's their passion. It's what they love doing, and now they're into their they're into their 70s, and it's still a good business. It's just them, and they love doing it, and it's taken them all over the country.
I was going to say, get to travel the country to find pieces and visit artists and
go to the
commission
shows
things,
and all the stuff. Yeah, it's been so. I mean that piece of support. But I mean, when you sit in front of friends and family or whatever and say, yeah, we're gonna stop doing this, which society says makes sense,
is the norm,
and we're going to do something that very few people even consider, but we're going to follow through on it, and we're going to do that. And we may fail, and we may be returning from Mexico in a year thinking, good Lord, what did we do? That was a terrible decision, but at least we gave it a shot.
That's it.
And so that was our whole mindset of what's the worst that can happen. You turn around and come back, or you make the next right decision once you get there, and you maybe go to another country, another city, another whatever, and or it could just it could work out.
And it's really a like I said, the philosophic question of life's indecision. You know, the path not taken. What would have been? What could have been? You know, what if I would have put that 2 hours a week? You know, and it's interesting because I did an episode not too long ago of the Talking Sound podcast about what makes a professional. But technically, there's two things. Number one, you get paid for what you do. Okay. That's to put it in dudes and beer terms here. That's the difference between the floozy at the party and a prostitute. Prostitute starts with pro and they get money. Okay. The floozy does it just because they enjoy it.
Okay.
I know a lot of audio engineers that do it just because they enjoy it, and they are not professionals. Okay. They don't get paid. Not that they aren't good at what they do.
Got it. Yeah.
Horrible analogy, but true nonetheless.
Yep.
And, you really do have to come to the aspect of understanding the fact that what you do is worth something, that your idea, your concept is worth something. And I guess figure out the fact that the way I figured it out when my dad was let go from 25 years with the company and his retirement package was taken and everything.
Yep.
And it was like, well, what the hell was the point of that?
Right.
Like, this is what I've been told to do my whole life, is to strive for that. And I just saw that happen. So what's the point of me ever working for anybody?
Yeah,
if I have these skills.
There is no safe
gig. And I can do this.
Yeah. It's safer when you've got multiple streams of income coming in from different clients.
Exactly.
One client, something changes, the company goes bankrupt, somebody makes a mistake, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you've got other things to rely on, and you don't have all of your eggs in one big corporate basket, and 25 years later, your retirement and everything goes away.
Yeah, your 401k's been invested.
Yeah,
and everything else.
That's scarier to me.
It's
than
a frightening
what I
and
do.
Real situation nowadays.
Big
like
time.
it happens on the
all the time.
regs. On the regs.
Yep.
And it's horrifying to me.
It is.
And I see it all the time. I actually hold no college degree.
Right.
I went to college long enough to be a doctor.
Okay.
Of something.
Of something. You could piece something together, maybe.
No, like the number of years I went, I should have gotten a doctorate.
Yes.
One semester I came back with a blood alcohol content for a GPA.
That's something.
How you get a 0.08 for a GPA for a semester. I know how. I know exactly how.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not you let those moments define you, or whether or not you let the moment of decision define you.
Sure.
And to sit, to think of where I would be without the moment that happened to me, where I came back from a wedding and literally had no job and was just like thrown out into self-employment and I was mixing at about 2 clubs at the time and worked with a couple bands, and it was like, oh, well, it's time to pick this up and go out and start selling some live recordings and cobble it together.
Yeah. Yep.
And really kind of hack a living together out of different streams of income, like you said.
Sure.
And,
Austin's a perfect place to do that.
There was actually an article recently, and I should find it and share it in the Austin podcast community, but it was, I want to say it was by Forbes or Fortune, that labeled Austin as the best city in the country for freelancers.
Yeah, I buy that hands down. It's a startup culture, but it's not the Silicon Valley level of just, I don't even know what level that is. That's off the grid level. Here it comes back to what I said earlier. There's a sense of community. When I came in, I didn't know, looking at all of this equipment in this, I still don't know anything about this stuff. And when I came to Austin a year ago and I wanted to start a podcast, I literally and figuratively raised my hand in the co-working space downtown and said, I'm going to start a podcast, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I have never, ever looked at a piece of audio editing software.
Sure.
I didn't have a microphone.
Sure.
I didn't have anything. And I just said, if you can help me, that would be great. And if you can't, if you know of somebody that could help me, that would also be great.
Direct me to them.
And the floodgates, the doors flew open here with people introducing me. It's a community.
Yeah, man. It is. It really is. And it's an interesting place because people do support each other. And that's even how we met. We met cross-posting on each other. I went and joined your group, and you came and joined mine.
That's true.
And then I want to say you were like, hey, that isn't what we post in this group. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. You should really come to my 100th podcast.
I'm coming. And I was.
And you did. But that's just it. Like it, and we both talked about how the fact of we started our pages on Facebook because it seemed like there was a community there, but nobody was really doing anything with the community.
Yeah.
Nobody was really doing anything. Like your page is much more about the hosts and the shows and, what are you doing for advertising? What are you doing for this? How are you growing it? How are you reaching your web out into the world? And let's talk about how we all do that and kind of brainstorm. Yep. And mine is much more of a, hey, everybody, let's cross promote each other's shows and let's, hey, come here and check out my episode. And, it was much more of a, let's find each other so that, you can find another comedy podcast and come be a friend, and we'll do like a monthly beer meetup somewhere. Yep. And we can all meet each other and be on each other's shows and cross promote and just blow this place up. Because it's a great culture. It's a fantastic culture. And there's, oddly enough, quite a few of us in town.
I know. It is pretty wild.
Very few of us actually know each other.
I know. I met Blake on Saturday night, who was a member of the group, and I had never met him. And I walked into a bar. There was a live podcast going on, and walk in. And he was like, hey, all right, finally, name of the face. And that's just, the only reason I was there is because I knew that he was going to be there because of the group. And I wanted to go and meet him, just like we met at Hops and Grains a few weeks ago. So it's the way it should be. This is the stuff that brought me back. Brought me to a city like Austin, to where it's just the ebb and flow, organic relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
That happen just get in the game, just get in there and just start introducing yourself and jump in the mix, and all things good will happen.
Yeah, sometimes it is jump both feet first in the deep end situation. You can't really tiptoe about it.
No.
People ask me all the time how I went about doing it. And it's like, don't get me wrong. I took pen to paper and I made a plan. I didn't just I'm one of those people that I guess through knowing web designers and things like that, I know that it's important to blast Google in one day with 18 different platforms. Bam, all this stuff launches at once, like Twitter, Facebook, website,
right.
Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes,
right.
Bam, it all goes live on one day. Google loves that. You'll immediately be up there, folks.
Yeah.
Just a little pro tip, coding wise, SEO is great. You can pay a lot of money for it. And if you have the money, you should pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, it's a huge thing. But yeah, there's so much that you can do on the free level. There's so much that you can do literally just on the networking level and getting your stuff out there.
Yep.
And it's important. It's really, really important to keep those doors open and to look for those moments.
And now I'm helping a person right now that wants to launch a podcast. And right. I'm like, well, of course, look at all the people, the people that gave me all of this information that I learned along the way, both on, of course, online and YouTube videos and blog posts, but then the local community. I mean, they provided me this information to pass along. They didn't, I'm passing it along to the next people that are saying, hey, you're 45 episodes in. Can you help me? Because I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to launch one. Well, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
that's part of it.
Well, and
gladly,
as we get ready to wrap up here, number one, it's been great having you on. I love sitting back and talking with people that are A, passionate about what they do, and B, try to show people a path to something greater than themselves, and a way to make themselves greater than what they are. Because that's just what life's about for me. I mean, I do it all the time. It's about paying it forward, folks. And you'd be surprised how much paying it forward comes back to pay you. It literally, it's physics, man. It's physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And it's
irrefutable.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The more you put it out, it's like the conversation between the geek and Damone in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Well, yeah, if you put the vibe out there 10,000 times, of course it's going to happen. Well, exactly. You got to put it out there for it to happen, man.
Right.
And you got to be willing to strut. You got to be willing to give it a shot in order for it to happen to begin with.
Yep.
Like if you've written 10 hours of music and put it up on the internet and told nobody where to find it, why did you put it up on the internet?
Right.
I know so many people like that. They're like, oh, if I could only get found. It's like, tell people where to find your stuff, bro. It's out there. Like you've told me it's out there.
Yeah.
Get on it.
Then you
do
gotta,
it.
Yeah, you got to
do it. Do
it.
it.
That's a whole nother level of
and it's learning some things and it's going through and it's literally, man, Google it.
Yep.
I taught myself WordPress through Google. I taught myself to read schematics through Google.
Oh, wow.
You can. If you're into it, your brain will learn it, folks. I'm here to tell you.
And Google and YouTube, man.
Google and YouTube.
That's
It is it. And on that note, thanks so much for coming and being on, sharing your stories, sharing the incredible stories of inspiration that you've gathered from the Go Hunt Life podcast and the many more that you'll have coming out. Tell everybody where they can go to find the content, where they can go to find your blog, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. For the podcast, everything is Go Hunt Life, gohuntlife.com, and you can go to Instagram, Facebook, even Pinterest, but Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. You can catch me at Twitter at Todd_Nevins, and my marketing services are all under the company name of ClickPlacement.com, and you can find me on all the social channels at Click Placement as well. And Chris, thank you very much for the invite.
Are you on Fiverr or anything like that with your services?
No, I'm not on Fiverr. That's an interesting point. No, not yet. But I'm researching Udemy and Skillshare and
right.
and Fiverr and Upwork and all of those. That's a 2017 goal to head in that direction. Yeah, maybe that's another conversation, man. I'm glad you brought that up.
Huge one.
Cool.
So on that note, everybody, while you're online checking out the great work of the Go Hunt Life podcast and its founder and creator and host, Todd Nevins, please hop on to dudesandbeer.com. Check out our videos of the week. They're awesome. They're funny. They're great. I think this last week was like the 10 scariest death-defying roller coasters in the world. There's one that like literally shoots you about 30 feet out in the air without track underneath you. It is frightening. That's all I get. I'm a roller coaster freak, and I'm like, never in the hell am I getting on that crap. We have stuff like that. We have all of the episodes there. We also have links to our free app. Hop on to iTunes, hop on to the Android market, look for Dudes and Beer podcast, and you will find the free app. You can tune into us live on Tuesday nights whenever we go live. You can also chat with us live on the app and leave comments, and we will actually talk to you live on air. And quite literally on that note, that is it for episode 102. Todd Nevins, once again, thanks so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate you. Make sure to go out and check out the Go Hunt Live podcast, everybody. Until next time, I'm Chris Jordan. If you can't be good at it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dudes and Beer podcast. To listen to our audio streams and chat with us live, download the official Dudes and Beer app for both Android and iDevices, available on the Google Play and iTunes markets. For more episodes, content, and information, visit us online at dudesandbeer.com. You can also find our episodes on Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast service. Dudes and Beer is a proud member of the Revolution Digital Group family of podcasts. Thanks for listening, everybody, and until next time, drink responsibly.